need to adjust it to get it back on level. Keep doing a spot and stalk. Be ready to roll. Hey guys, I'm going to talk about hog hunting today. So I'm just going to give you a few tips and pointers on trying to make your hunt more successful. One of the things is number one is do not take a shower right before you go hunting with like Axe body soap or something like, Irish Spring, something that's going to give off a strong smell. Don't wear cologne. Don't chew like strong spearmint gum, that type of thing. We are playing the wind. So when I say playing the wind, we're getting downwind from them and coming up with the wind in our face when we're coming up to them. But you get into a situation where the wind starts swirling a little bit, you want to try to lessen your footprint as much as possible. Try not to give off, any type of a strong odor, something that they're not used to, things of that nature. Don't wear bright colored clothing. Don't wear white, yellow, things of, fluorescent green, things like that. You want to wear, grays, tans, black, camo. Camo's really not a big deal. A lot of guys like to wear camo whether they're hunting day or night. I hardly ever wear camo. I usually wear gray. But, black can be a bad deal on a full moon night. You get, full moon, bright out, you're walking across a cut field, the field's kind of bright or yellowed out a little bit, you will leave a silhouette with black clothing. So on full moon nights, I'm wearing grays and tans and that type of stuff, khaki colored things. Noise is a big deal. Noise is huge. These hogs can hear very, very well. So the nail on the chalkboard for me, screeching sounds for me are crinkling water bottles. We'll be driving through one field and come through a tree line, coming into the next field, and right when you come up to those trees, somebody will crinkle a water bottle up, and you could have hogs right on the other side of that tree line. Boom, they're gone. So try not to make any noise or as little a noise as possible. We wear headsets. So with our headsets, we've got push to talk right here on the back that we can actually whisper in these things and communicate with everybody on board. So we're trying to be as quiet as possible. There's been numerous times where we'll be, creeping through a field at 10 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour, whatever, and I'll have to get on the radio and say, hey guys, if I can hear you, the hogs can hear you. There'll be guys in the high seat talking, just out of their regular day voices as loud as possible. So you just try to keep your noise level to a minimum. Cell phones, turn your cell phone on silent, turn your brightness down so you're not casting a big shadow with that bright light, but make sure that your cell phone is on silent. Like I said, you're playing the wind, trying to stay downwind from them. If you've got a 12 to 15, 17 mile an hour wind, that wind is going to conceal a lot of your sound, but you might get out there and have a 3 mile an hour wind, and man, every little thing you do, a mouse farts and they're going to hear it. You see, you got to keep that to a minimum. Concealment is big. So although these hogs don't have great eyesight, their hearing and smell is great, okay? But they don't have great eyesight at night. On a full moon night, they could see out to 100 yards. So they could see your backdrop, your silhouette walking across these fields if it's bright out at 100 yards. But most of the time, you're talking, 30, 40 yards, 50 yards, they'll be able to see silhouettes unless it's super dark out or if you've got a good backdrop. So you can use hay bales if there's hay bales out in the field, fresh cut field, and they baled them up and there's bales everywhere. Use those hay bales to go behind those hay bales and sneak between hay bales to get as close as possible. We like to try to get within 40, 45 yards of most of our hogs. We've been within 25. We've got a video online of one of our guides actually walking right up into the middle of a group of hogs with subsonics and shooting them at point blank range right in front of them. The conditions were obviously absolutely perfect during that, but try to use something to conceal you. If you're excuse me, if you're walking along and you've got a tree line to the side and the wind's coming that direction where you can walk that tree line, use that as your backdrop so that way when you're walking up on them, you can get as close as possible, then cut away from those trees to close the distance on them. Don't drag your feet. Even if you're in a cut field or whatever it might be, don't drag your feet and scuff your feet along, footsteps as soft as possible. Slow yourself down. Be ready to be as quiet as possible. You're trying to sneak up on these things. be ready to roll when you get out there. I mean, obviously, like a blind or stand hunting is a little bit different, but doing a spot and stock, be ready to roll. Already have a round chambered, your gun on safe, obviously, but have a round chambered ready to rock and roll. So that way, if you pull up and you've got hogs, say there you pull through a field and all of a sudden there's hogs at 40 yards right out in front of you, you got to be able to get on them right now. You don't have time to be able to, rack around and make that noise and chamber that weapon. We get on our tripods. If we're going to shoot on tripods, we get on our tripods right out of the buggy. So if we pull up and we're 100, 150 yards away from these hogs, we're getting out, we're locking on tripods, we're picking up our tripods, muzzle down, keeping our muzzle in a safe direction, and we're walking up on these hogs. We walk up on these hogs, then we split apart and form a straight line and get up on them, but we're already locked on tripods. You do not have time to get out there, make noise, getting your gun on, locked on the tripod, cranking it on there, even just setting your tripod down. You don't want to set it down and put your gun on top of it. You want to have everything ready to go. So be ready to roll. When you're closing the distance on these pigs, you're walking up on these pigs. We'll typically walk up and get within about 70 yards, and then we start slowing things down, unless they're moving across the field and we got to cut them off and really get moving on them. But we're closing the distance. We're watching for satellite boars. When I say satellite boars, a lot of times these groups of hogs will have another big boar out there, and he'll be circling the group, kind of looking for coyotes coming in to try to steal a baby or something. So you got to kind of pay attention to your surroundings. We're using our handheld spotters, and we're looking at all directions, all the trees all around us, to make sure that there's not a lone pig out there that's going to wind us or hear us, and all of a sudden they give off one grunt. You get one pig that grunts, danger. There's going to be a few second pause, and they're all gone. They all take off. So if you hear a pig grunt, you got to be ready to rock and roll. Now, a pig grunt is different than hearing a whole group of pigs in there rooting around and fighting and wrestling around and pushing each other off the bait pile or whatever it might be. You'll hear them a lot of times in there fighting, but when it's dead quiet and they're out there and they're eating off the ground, and all of a sudden one pig raises its head and gives off a grunt, that group is getting ready to blast out of there. So watch out for lone pigs out there circling these groups, and also watch the hog's mannerism. Watch how they move. These hogs will, even if they're eating out of a feeder and they're all down on the ground just chowing away, you get one hog that stops and raises its head, and it's got its nose kind of up in the air. It's smelling and listening because it knows the jig is up. Something is happening. So just watch how these pigs move. Obviously, if they're busy eating it on the ground, you can keep just closing the distance on them. But as soon as they stop moving, man, you got to stop. And we'll walk up on these pigs a lot of times, and we'll get within 50 yards, and all of a sudden, you'll see a pig will stop, and he'll look, and he'll kind of be looking around. But he still hasn't raised his head and done the freeze mode. If he does that, we're shooting right now. But sometimes these pigs will pause, maybe stare at you, kind of looking around, go back to eating, that type of stuff. So watch how the hogs move. That'll tell you how close you can get. When you feel that you've closed enough distance and you're ready to shoot, slow everything down. Get everything set. Be ready to go. That way when you start shooting in these, because once that first round is going down range, man, them pigs are taking off running. So hope I've helped you guys with just a few things to look out for that'll make your hunt more successful. Obviously, if you're in a blind or a stand, things can be a little bit different. You typically then you're at the mercy of what the wind's going to do as far as how it's going to carry. You might have to use some type of scent elimination spray or something of that nature, just to try to conceal your smell a little bit, because you're not able to move around depending on the wind like we are when we're doing a spot and stock. Movement and things like that, usually if you're in a blind or stand, it's dark inside. Even during the daylight, it's dark inside. So they're typically not going to see little bits of movements, but still, you don't want to be clanging around and making all kinds of noise. So hope that I helped you out. If you guys have anything you want to add, just leave a comment. I'll get back to you. Thank you.